The time to build is upon us.
With great power comes great responsibility.
You know the greatest danger facing us is ourselves, an irrational fear we all know.
Not because they are easy, but because they are hard.
This is the Superhuman Academy podcast.
Outside.
What time is it there?
7.
Oh, that's not too bad.
No, it's not. But I had to take my dog out. Poor guy.
Are you a morning person?
Not by choice.
You're forced to be a morning person by your dog?
By my dog, absolutely. That's right.
Yeah. What kind of dog do you have?
He's part husky and doodle, I guess you call it. So cyberdoodle.
Cyberdoodle?
I that's not funny. I had to look it up.
Did you buy it from Tesla?
From Tesla. Oh, gee whiz, with the Cybertruck.
Cyberdoodle.
Yeah, they can come. Each one comes with a Cybertruck. He was at a shelter. So my wife surprised me with the dog. And, usually you kind of talk about these things if you're a couple, but she comes in the door and in her trench coat, so it was raining outside, comes in and all of a sudden this little head comes out, this little puppy's face. And of course, instant love right there. Love at first sight.
Yeah, before you realized you're going to have to start getting up early every day.
Early every day, the first year of training, of course. It's kind of like having little babies, which my babies are big now, but they have their own clock. It's when you want to sleep.
Your AI is trying to enter the room like multiple times now. It's flooding the waiting room.
I don't.
You can't keep us out.
Whatever. It's scary. It's like taking over, right?
Yeah.
Is this mic okay? Is everything all right?
Yeah. Yeah. It sounds good to me.
All right.
I saw I guess it was a video the other day of some guy who he had AI write a podcast about AI and then plugged it into an AI like video generator, and they had these hosts, and so you had the voices were AI generated. It was just like completely AI generated podcast that sounded very realistic. Like it didn't sound like computer voices. It like even the writing, like they had pauses and they had like stuff like this where I'm saying like
Yeah.
that was built in, like nervous tics were built in. It was crazy.
Oh my goodness. This is scary. I don't know what to think.
Yeah, I don't know if we're necessary, especially for podcast production anymore. Just
put a prompt in there and go back to sleep. And watch the numbers go up, right?
Yeah. So that's freaky. Well, have you been creating anything cool recently?
Recently, what have I been doing recently? I've been writing some music recently. Maybe it's not as cool. What else am I doing? Oh no, I've been working on the reason the AI is on there. I'm working on a book about volunteerism with a friend, so it kind of like helps us like put it all down and start writing notes out. So that's a kind of a fun project. And then I am working on the outline for the Robots and Wizards, which is going to be follow up to Mind Blown. It's going to actually have a third character, the dragon, and he's going to be. My dog is actually going to be Sherlock's his name because he's curious. He's going to be my little puppy in a dragon suit who kind of like signals to the robot and wizard when when either one or both of them should like act or react to some danger or whatever is going to happen on the journey.
That's awesome. Is your daughter going to draw the illustrations again?
I hope so. Hope I can afford her now. And she's all pro. So it's like before it's like, okay, some rent. I'll forgive a little bit of rent, but now, I got to pay that rent too. So.
Yeah. She's rich and famous from the first book. And
yeah, she'll make more doing, she's a tattoo artist now. So that's her.
Oh, okay.
So she'll make more doing that. And she's going to have to practice on me. So, we'll see how that goes.
You get all your book illustrations in a sleeve up your arm.
That would be kind of cool, the little robot and wizard. But yeah, so the dog would be, so the idea is adding this dragon in the triangle. So he'd be the top of the triangle saying, you do this and you go there. And my dream would be to do it as a graphic novel.
Oh, that'd be cool.
So a nonfiction graphic novel, I guess.
Yeah, that'd be fun. So
For 10 years.
can a person be the dragon? Because a person can be a wizard or a robot. Can a person be the dragon or oh, okay.
Yeah. So you could be any of these because these are the three brain networks that like the salient network. I should have gave him the character. He's the one who like says you should be the robot now or you should be the wizard now. So it's kind of like the dog's
The what network? What did you call that?
the salient. It's like it's the one where
Salient network.
so salient one's like it says it's time to focus on task and your executive functions. So you're the robot right now. Okay, well you need some ideas. Okay, now it knows you're not in danger right now. So now this is a good time for you to kind of dream up stuff. And the governor of that, I guess, is the salient network.
Where does the
switch.
salient network reside in the brain?
All three of these things are all over your brain. So you really,
Okay.
it's like pieces of it. So it's not like a switch where right or left brain. It's like you got
Sure. Yeah.
these multiple connections. So you're never really losing logic, for instance, when you're imagining. And I always thought, okay, you're either logical or not. Growing up in this strict environment, you can't trust your feelings, young man. Like, no, but I'm seeing this, but it's really logical. I thought that was that brain science kind of helped me through some trauma. Because it's like, oh, wait a minute. This is all what humans should do, but you need to regulate it. So like if you're only in your imagination and never like strictly rational, then that's a problem. But if you're only rational and never imagination, you're actually being not completely logical with things because you're not imagining. You're not kind of seeing other angles.
Mm-hmm.
So scientists need to do that. So
Yeah. You
anyway.
said it helped you through some trauma. How did that work?
Well, just the idea of like, just because I'd see stuff and like, not time for that because you blurt out things when you're ADHD as a young child, and so understanding that this is normal. I just need to learn to regulate it and leverage it. That was a big deal, and that's one reason I wanted to write this book because it's just like, and this whole idea of creativity kind of captured me. So wait a minute, this is like normal. It's just I have to learn when to be the robot and the wizard, and it's not a big deal if my wizard is on 90% of the time. It's just I have to accept that.
Mm-hmm. So how did that realization come about? Like, was there a defining moment or experience or anything?
Because this finding moment, what would that be? Trying to think about that. Well, the moment of finding to find out this journey to go on it was when I was teaching a class and someone came up afterwards. So, I need to know your creative process. And it was nothing about creativity. So I was like, okay, what is my creative process? And so, I started looking it up. And then I started seeing, growing up, because when you're in music stuff, it can be brutal. I mean, people think sports is brutal. The coach is probably an angel compared to a lot of music teachers. It's just true. They hit you with a ruler if you're a pianist. It's just so brutal. But the idea that you could, make up stuff on your own, but yet you still are learning this other thing, that they can both exist, was not a part of music education. It's like you're not good enough to think of something new yet. You have to somehow be whatever this is. And so that's just one example of just like not believing the things you're seeing could happen and being more curious about it. And then finding out, wait a minute, I'm just going to make this stuff up anyway. And I found a new teacher, piano teacher, that said, hey, Rich, that's really cool. When did you come up with that? Or what is that from? And I said, I don't know where it's from, and that just like, wait a minute, I've been missing out.
So you had a student ask you what your creative process is, and you realized you didn't have a creative process, and then you had to you had to figure out what your creative process was.
Yeah, I felt,
Okay.
FOMO there. I'm missing out on something here. But I just didn't know what that language was.
Hmm.
And then partly because when I went back and I said, okay, that's where I discovered it, is when I realized, you know, you can be in the process of learning something, a skill, but yet still dreaming of something, of creating with it. So, you don't have to be a chef to make a new uh, variance on your cooking,
Hmm.
put a little bit of extra curry in.
Yeah, I've worked with a lot of people who want to shift in their career or you know, do anything new, and one of the most common, um, I don't know what do you call it, the idea in their mind is that they have to, before they're allowed to do that, they have to get some sort of formal education or certification or title or something like that before they're allowed to um, dabble or play around in that sandbox, whatever sandbox it is that they're interested in playing around in. Um, and I don't know, I just haven't found that to be the case in my life now. I think that kind of inhibits people from trying new things, is like this belief that, well, I'm not allowed to, um, you know, like I couldn't help my friends with their exercise routines if I don't have like a sports science degree. So I'm interested in like helping people with exercise. I'm really passionate about it, but I'm coming to you because I want help to learn so I can go get this degree. And my first thought is like, I mean, you know more than your friends do, right? Like you're passionate about it. You could help them now. Like,
Yeah, just
why do you
getting
need
them
to
to,
get a
yeah,
degree first?
yeah, just, yeah, you're helping them and getting them off the couch. So,
Yeah,
I'm just saying, it's like, it's, it's kind of different than, you don't want to go to a doctor that smokes
sure.
necessarily, because way back in the day when I was a little kid, that's doctor smoking in the office, you're kind of like, of course, we would never allow that now. Of course, he goes smoke in the back now, if he's going to smoke. But at the same time, humanity is about being curious, and we put all these parameters on it. It pays to be a little bit rebellious, to say, I want to learn something. And if you're willing to go through the pain of, failure, which is this is what happens to anybody, then that's really learning. It's not learning to get, to pass a test. We're
Yeah.
such a, you know, the data says you pass these tests, therefore you're qualified, as opposed to someone who's really has a love for something. The word amateur, like amateur musicians versus pro musicians, amateur musicians, we don't really value enough because they love music so much. They're doing it in, you know, middle of the night. My brother's an amateur musician. He's really good. After a day counting, because he's an accountant, he gets his electric guitar out, turns the tubes up, and that's beautiful. And he's learned, and it's added to his life to be creative. Everything doesn't have to be this commercial or academically
Yeah.
endorsed thing to fill your life up, or even eventually maybe to be pro at it.
Yeah. Well, one thing I wanted to hear your thoughts on this. For a long time, I've said that creativity is not origination, it's combination. And like to me, what I'm saying there is it's not creating something from nothing. It's not like pulling it out of thin air. It's like taking things that already exist, ideas that already exist, and then kind of throwing them together and seeing what happens and what comes out of that. Would you agree with that, or do you have a different perspective?
I would like 1,000% agree with that. I think I wish I had that thought
You
many
can
years
have it.
ago.
It's yours. Take it.
Well, I'll take it now, but I mean, it took me a lot of like bouncing around to really believe that's true, because you keep thinking you have to be so original, whatever that means now, that no one's ever done this before or thought this before. Well, come on, we got billions of people. You add up to the billions that have lived throughout history. You know, there's been some smart people. Like, where did math come from, for instance?
Mhm.
We keep thinking that ancient people were, not as smart as we are. They probably were smarter. Um, but yeah, so I agree with that. And creativity, that combining is a really good thing. It's kind of like one. brain scientist I was reading talks about it being like collisions.
Yeah.
So they're like actually, and some of them stick. So you're
Mhm.
allowing yourself to collide things that in a messy way, perhaps in your brain, or even in just experimentation. Hopefully, not blowing up a chem lab. But that is it. I really agree with that. I think it holds you back if you're not willing to be free like this. Hey, I just got to find some cool things to combine.
Yeah.
Um, yeah.
Yeah, because like I think most people that I've talked to anyway who say that they're not creative, like the perspective that I kind of hear from them or that I sense from them is that they think of it like, okay, creative means I would be able to open a blank sheet of paper, like staring at this thing. There's nothing there. It's like blank slate, and then just make something amazing out of it, whether that's just writing this completely original story from this blank piece of paper, or that's taking this canvas and painting this beautiful picture that you're not drawing inspiration from anything, just pulling it out of nowhere. And that's pretty terrifying. Like if I'm just looking at a blank piece of paper and telling myself, all right, create something super cool. I don't know. I haven't really found that to be very effective. Usually it's like I don't start that way. It's like I have listened to, some podcast episode, and then I've read part of a book, and then I've listened to a song, and then all of a sudden, like I have this eureka moment where I feel some connections happening, and I'm like, oh man, I need to write these ideas down. Um, and that's where it comes from, not starting with the blank slate. Is that how it works for you too?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
It's really about, yeah, you get your material somewhere. That's why, a writer's gonna, if you're at the coffee shop, say I'm working on something writing, and I need some ideas. I'm looking around thinking that's an interesting person right there. And they're telling a story. I said, oh man, I could use that story. I'm stealing something. What's it? Austin Kleon has a little book called Steal Like an Artist, which is kind of
Yeah.
fun. And we're so afraid of that. But yeah, that's how I would say 100%. And it's not just, there's a term maybe I created. Maybe this is original, Colin.
Okay.
Uh, blank canvas attack, panic attack, blank canvas panic attack
Yeah.
is the blank sheet of paper or whatever, that if you just think that. And I think how we go from like this blank sheet to something is we have to find some kind of container to start with. So, and then we can start putting in the things you're talking about, this experience or whatever, the song I heard, this conversation I had, this memory that all of a sudden came to me, and it starts to then have a space for it to the canvas to be put on, as opposed to, so you even need like something to like prompt you. Here's what I'm doing
Mhm.
today. I'm writing a story. Um, that helps as opposed to I'm just going to create. So you take it from that abstract. You have to take the abstract and as much as possible walk to the real world.
Yeah, I have this idea that, even in problem solving, because, creativity is not just about painting pictures and making music, it's about, problem solving in general. And um, I thought of this a while ago because I was thinking, well, if I wanted to write a story and I'm just sitting down, I'm like, I'm going to write a story, but I don't already have something in my mind. I was thinking, well, I could just generate, you know, let's say three lists of anything, take a list of 50 objects, a list of 50, and this actually came from some memory stuff that I've worked on people with. Like, have you heard of PAO systems?
Oh no, what is
Okay.
that?
Okay, so this is something, yeah, this is cool. So if you ever watch a memory championship, which mostly is just people like sitting and staring at something quietly, but it's really
Oh wow.
fascinating, is that they're trying to remember, thousands of digits in a row or a deck of playing cards as fast as possible or names and fate, whatever. So one of the strategies people use is called PAO systems, and PAO stands for person, action, object. And so like they'll take the more complicated ones will go like the number 000 through 999. And for all 1,000 of those digit combinations, they'll have a person, action, and object associated with that combination. So like 000 might be Darth Vader with a lightsaber, slicing something in half with the lightsaber. It's kind of like Clue. It's like uh, Colonel Mustard in the billiard room, whatever. It's like they've got this combination. And then with that, what they're able to do is if they have 9 digits in a row, that's broken down into 3 sets of 3. And so they'll take the person from the first set of digits. They'll take the action from the second set of digits and the object, and the object from the third set of digits, and they'll combine those and they get this crazy image, right? So now you might have like Darth Vader wearing a white glove, like maybe it's Michael Jackson's white glove, and he's, slam dunking on a basketball hoop or something. And so that might be the image that they get. And it's really bizarre and it's memorable. And anyway, so I'm familiar with that for memorization, but I was thinking like, what if like with any problem solving, I feel like you could do this where you just generate maybe 3 lists of items and you could have AI generate it, you could have computer generate it, you could write it yourself, you could just look around your room, whatever. And then you just start like pick a random one from the first list, a random thing from the second list, a random thing from the third list. And like that would be really helpful for writing a story because you just get something bizarre and it's a starting point and inspires you. And you could do this as many times as you want. You could do it for music. But I was thinking you could probably also do this for any problem solving because it's not like let's say if you're solving an engineering problem, the solution to the engineering problem isn't Darth Vader dunking a basketball, probably. But
Probably.
but the process of doing that combination, it's like whenever people explain, like if they're an expert and they're explaining something, they tend to default to like metaphors and analogies and things like that. And so I was thinking you could go the other direction where you're like, okay, I've got this problem, and then you come up with this abstract, or not abstract, actually, be pretty concrete, like this image. And then the question is, well, how is this image, this crazy image, potentially a metaphor for this problem or for the solution to it?
Oh
Does that
yeah.
make sense at all?
Oh, that totally makes sense. With all this, the recent stuff I studied for that book was like salient network. We talked about that because what you're doing there is you're saying the metaphors, in that picture part of your brain is more of the wizard, right? So
Yeah.
you're look, but you can also start the other place and say, here's some constructs that I'm going to work with, to pick a list of things, a list of prompts.
Hmm.
And so at least the research that I've read, which is a lot more than I haven't read that I've read, is talking about this kind of thing. It's like
Yeah.
exactly what you're talking about, where you need challenge yourself in different ways to you know to do that. So it's kind of like that thing about curiosity. You start looking for something, and then it becomes really familiar to you, and then you start looking for other new things. Well, it's similar to what you're talking about. Is that? But I have memory problems, maybe. So maybe I need to learn that technique because I'm like, what's my phone number? I mean, we don't remember phone numbers anymore. I mean, it's like those of us who are not as young, you had to remember
Yeah.
a phone number. You said, get her phone number. So you had to actually write it down somewhere. It's not like,
Yeah.
let me tap your phone for your contact information.
Yeah. Well, you'll probably want use like the major method or something like that. You can look that up. It's like you convert digits to sounds, and then you create words out of those sounds, and you create images out of those words, and then create a story. And it sounds like a really complicated process. Like, oh man, that's so many steps. But as you learn it, your brain kind of like shortcuts all that really quickly. And so, like now, for example, since I've used the major method for years, when
Hmm.
I see the number 4, I hear the R sound in my head.
This is really interesting because you've heard of perfect pitch. So
Yeah.
if
Yeah.
musicians who have this can instantly identify what that pitch is and spell it out, or multiple pitches. And
Hmm.
some of them claim they see a color with each one of those
Yeah. Like
sounds.
synesthesia.
And so, boom, this color that's A flat or B sharp. Or
Hmm.
B sharp would be C. Or,
Right.
but anyway, sorry those who aren't musicians. That's really nerdy. But
I gotcha.
it's really that's interesting to me because it seems like people who can recall things do have these
Yeah.
shortcuts. Some of them perhaps discover them naturally, like
Yeah.
perfect pitch. Just some a music school I went to, they try to get you to learn it. But if they had your technique, like put a sound to this particular pitch or a image, that would have been great, because a lot of people struggled and flunked that music ear training class.
Yeah, I think that's probably possible. I do. I've thought about that before with perfect pitch in particular. Like if you could um train your brain to wire up that particular pitch with something else. And so like when you hear a C, then you immediately like see a train in your head, and you don't necessarily know why, but like you wired them together, but you'll just know, oh, there's a train, like that must be a C. Like that'd be really interesting. I don't know if anyone's done it that way before. I had relative pitch for a while where I did train myself to be able to recognize. I used E as my like anchor note. Um, and then I learned intervals by ear, and I was able to figure out pitches from that, but I never got to perfect pitch, and I've lost relative pitch too since then. So I'm back to where I
And
started.
all it's like waveforms, so
Yeah.
like I used to use B flat as a trumpet player. You probably were a string player because
Yeah, it was guitar. Yeah. Yeah.
but it's like, really you have to start somewhere to give that, well, I was really good at being able to pick out, they play cluster of notes, and you'd have to like face the other direction in this class. And I got really good at, because I would somehow be able to start with, here is the tonic.
Yeah.
And then later when I had a music theory class, I found out that the tonic always had a particular relationship to the other notes. It could be
Yeah. Right.
whatever the smallest interval is. If it's the lowest note, like what do you call that, second, then that would be the tonic, the next note. Or there's another formula for it. I didn't know there was a formula for it. So
Yeah.
but if you really do train yourself to see things, that's kind of exciting. And that's where your whole brain, this whole idea of like creative process that we talked about before, it's the process. And so somehow, we look at things, turning our head on our shoulders, saying, here's how I got here. But when you're starting out, you don't know, how am I going to fix this? How am I going to learn the relative pitches or whatever? And that's a problem in itself to solve.
Yeah, well, I think you just started the process right there because you asked a question, and and the way you asked it was like, how am I going to learn relative pitch? Which that's immediately like opening up process thinking and thinking of different options, rather than asking a question like, can I learn relative pitch? To which it's like, on one side of that, if you answer no, then it's like, well, the process just stops. You just gave up and you can't do it. If you said yes, well, now the next question is the question you just asked, so you can just skip to that. So this actually brings me to something I wanted to ask you about too. For a long time, I've thought like creativity is like, one way to think about it is that it's the art or science or ability to generate answers to questions. Just one way to think about it. And so when I thought about it that way, it opened up this idea, well, like if that's what creativity is, or if I think about it that way, that means my creativity is really only constrained by how many questions I ask. And so creativity is like a function of curiosity. And curiosity, I mean, it is kind of a skill you can train, but at the same time, it's like anybody can ask a question. Like you can just look around the room and ask dumb questions, be like, I've got a leather couch behind the camera right now. Like, why does that leather couch scratch so easily? I don't know. You can just start generating questions, right? And the more, I think we talked about this before, like the more you generate questions or you try to generate ideas, like the better you get at it, right? And that seems like such a accessible starting point to getting more creative. What are your thoughts on that?
Oh, I love this idea about the questions, because and that's what annoys some people. like the ones who are trying to tell me, don't follow that imaginative side of yours. We're basically saying, don't keep asking questions, because that came up a lot. But I think that is a driver for creativity, whether it's like, how am I going to make supper with these 4 items? I have to be a
Mhm.
MacGyver, like last night. Like, okay, I got this ground turkey and whatever, and okay, these noodles are normally Thai noodles, but I got Indian spices. So how am I gonna like make this work? And well, you know what? Let's try this. And my wife ate it. She liked it, and I thought it was okay too. But so I created something, and I think, but the question was like, how am I? Oh no, sometimes it is kind of like you sinking feeling like I wanted to eat something nice today. Look at I didn't go to the grocery store recently. So, but that is answering a question. But yeah, that question though, you can also ask proactively, like, what if, like, wonder when we get to the point where it's not about, oh no, I got to solve this danger I'm in, but use those same muscles to solve questions like, what if we could get along better as people? Um,
Mhm.
what if I could, offer my kids this thing, this kind of life? What would it take for me to do that? I mean, big things. And so creativity comes both from the questions I think about, supper, but also these big questions about life, about creating a life for myself and my family and the world and my place in it. And the thing that stops us are the other voices that silence questions like you should have done this, you could have done that. Well, oh no, now I'm trying to solve something I can't solve now. All that
Mhm.
energy. Mr. and Mrs. should have and could have. Those are people that are evil. Uh, I gave them all names, right? Speaking of memory, so I can remember this list of
Yeah, that's
uh,
great. It makes
bad
sense.
ways of thinking. But really, a lot like I can't, or all or nothing thinking. It's like I
Yeah.
either gonna be a pro at this or I'm not gonna try it and fail and see what happens. So like the
Yeah.
same with an amateur musician, I'm gonna, either if I know I'm not going to be like 110% the best at this, I'm not going to do it. Well, so what? What if you discover by learning, the guitar or whatever it is, more about yourself and you have ability to start writing songs. And it wasn't about the guitar, it was about like, composing something you could express at a deeper level, and impress your wife with it, like, ooh, you know, um, instead of an argument, here we go, let me sing to you, sweetheart. Um, but I think the question is so powerful because it really is, it is that where little kids are silenced because you're knowing, no, now it's the time to give me the answer. When, the Greeks had it, what, oh, question. When it comes to issues of faith, what did Jesus do? Being I'm a person of faith, he always asks a question. He didn't give anybody answers. This is the funny thing. There was no answers. So, I tell my Christian friends, I said, hey, if you're just giving answers, that's boring because, your God didn't give any answers. He just asked more questions. And so you would ask more questions. And so I look at that as very important part of, as human beings, it's a height of when we're in danger, we ask questions, how am I going to get out of this? But also when we
Yeah.
dream with wonder, like, what if this could happen? And that's what if questions to me are the best.
What if? Yeah, that reminds me of, have you read the book Rich Dad Poor Dad?
I have not read that. I've heard about that. It's on a
Yeah,
list I have.
yeah, popular like financial freedom thinking, Robert Kiyosaki. But I read that book at one point, and uh, I don't remember the exact quotes at all. Didn't put them in my memory palace, but um, he was saying, something along the lines of, instead of or saying like I can't afford that, ask the question like how could I afford that? It's the same type of thinking, right? Because like when you say I can't afford that, like that just stops the process. There's nothing that happens after that. But unless you ask the question, and it doesn't have to be that specific question, but unless you keep asking questions, but like what if is how you were phrasing it. You haven't given your brain any reason to try to be creative. And so it's not going to. Like, why would it bother spending the energy like trying to come up with solutions when it doesn't need to? If you haven't asked a question, then it's like, oh, cool. Well, I'm off the hook. I can just relax. I don't need to come up with any solutions because we've decided that there's not a problem that's solvable here, right?
Yeah, you just taking yourself out of the team, out of the game, completely. And that's why these patterns of thought that are common, that keep us from being creative or moving forward in anything really are the I can'ts or you should haves. You're looking at the past comparison. But so and so did this, but so and so did it in 2 years. I had someone tell me, by this time you should have written like 10 books. Like, I said, I'm lucky I even wrote one book, let alone two. I said, those are super hard to do. But I mean, people, and then then someone like me, I just be honest, I'm going to be thinking like, man, I should have done 10 books. Like what had stopped me, or what could, and you start justifying that kind of thinking by thinking it's going to improve me by beating myself up so I can find my weak points. Because we're taught this, and they teach us in management, like let's grade down so we can see a person's weak points so they can grow, right? And really we demoralize them by not saying, like if you sat down with an employee, if your manager say, what if you really could see your numbers higher than they are now? It's possible you can do it. Let's find out how.
Yeah.
And a lot of that is the let's too. A lot of it's realize we don't have to do things alone. We can find information, we can find people, so, but I love the idea of the question.
Yeah, and what you just said, it's like when you said the comparison thing, like when I was starting in music and playing guitar and things like that, you go on YouTube or anywhere now, and you can type in like anything that you're trying to do, type in 5-year-old doing that thing, you'll find some kid.
Oh my goodness. That's
who can
fun.
do
I
it.
gotta try that.
Yeah, you can do it better than you probably ever will. And if you look at the comments under YouTube videos like that, everyone's like, well, I'm giving up on guitar, or I'm giving up on this, because why even bother when a 5-year-old is doing it better than I could probably ever do it in my life? And I love stuff like that because it's like, wow, that's amazing. It just opens my mind to possibilities. Like, well, if he could figure that out at 5, like, why can't I? To me, that just means like it's possible, and I could figure it out. And I also like the let's thing. It's like, well, if I see somebody doing something really cool, that's awesome, because that means like I could potentially connect with that person and learn from them, and we could learn from each other. And I don't see it as competition. I see it as like an opportunity for a potentially really cool collaboration or friendship. Now, not all of those work out, but some of them do. Like this conversation right now.
Yeah. The title solopreneur
Yeah.
I started hating that idea
Yeah.
until I realized that, wow, wait a minute. I get to meet more people. I get to work with more. I'm not set with just being by myself, but what it means, I get to decide the questions I guess I'm asking, right? And I think really we're designed to be the let's go together. Let's do that. And the 5-year-old though, that's gonna haunt me. I'm gonna go look that up right after this.
Anything you want to do, a 5-year-old is already doing it better.
Oh,
Yeah. Okay, so I had another question for you. So I've had this idea for a long time too of like with the idea of your brain, if you kind of like let it off the hook, it's not going to try to come up with creative solutions. And one of the ways that I think, like the reason I think people often don't feel very creative or don't feel like they have any ideas is they're always outsourcing the problem of thinking or the challenge of thinking. So for example, like we live in the Google era, and now we're moving into like the AI era where we can just any question that we can think of, you could hypothetically plug it into some sort of search engine or AI and it could give you an answer. Now the answer might be terrible, but it'll give you
it might
something.
be terrible.
Might be terrible. And I think, if somebody asks, like, well, why do some plants only open up during a certain time of day or something like that? Like these flowers open up, or they're always pointing towards the sun. Instead of pondering that, I'm like, well, let's think about that. Let's come up with ideas, probably most of which are wrong, but like, let's try, come up with some solutions. The immediate answer is just pull out the phone and Google it. And then it's like, okay, well, I've just outsourced the creative process to the search engine or other people or whatever. And now my brain doesn't have any reason to try to think about it. And so when I was thinking about that, it's like, well, if we're always like looking at our phones, always scrolling through our phones, outsourcing that process, it's no wonder that we're not maybe having creative ideas. And so the solution that I came up with, which I'm sure I'm not the first one, I've seen other people talk about this, but like just sitting and trying to be bored and then just seeing what happens. And like, how long can I sit here? And every time I come up with an idea of how to stop my boredom, I don't do it because I'm going to force my brain to come up with some other idea and just see how many it will spit out. And so I've done this, I've challenged other people to do this, and almost without fail, everybody who tries this has either some crazy idea, it might be terrible, but crazy idea, or like a really good idea that they haven't thought of before, or just something interesting comes to mind. Have you tried that? Just like sitting around and being bored? Have you found that to be effective?
Well, because I'm not so young, we didn't have Google way back in the
So
day.
you had
And
to,
so
yeah.
it was very primitive life. And of course, my family liked camping. My dad liked to take us camping. And so you
Yeah,
were bored a lot after doing a hike. You're just sitting out there. What are you going to do? You can get a sketch pad out. You can draw the tree and study the tree. And there's something about that that's just, I miss that. But I think what you're saying is really powerful because um, to be human is to be present in us, ourselves, our skin, and what we're relating to, what we're seeing with our very eyes and hearing with our ears. And the excitement of living is that. And boredom is a kind of a pain that kind of it opens up something in us. And you can't, without boredom, be what's the word? Without boredom, you're not going to be able to ask these questions like the
Mhm.
flowers, why do they do that? That's going to lead to another question. Well, I wonder if it's the sun, um, wonder if all the flowers do that. But then it's going to ask, then you're starting to listen to more existential things in your life that maybe you're putting off, because Google can't ask you what's the meaning of this, because what we
Right.
want is meaning. And why we're not finding meaning is because we aren't doing the kinds of things that seem silly and simple that you are absolutely talking about at this moment. And I think it's a very profound thing to say, to be just to have that curiosity, to be grounded in the kinds of things of um, just that are around you and what that can do a lot more than we think. So being bored might be the linchpin for a lot of stuff we're going through as a society right now.
Yeah. Because it's like you mentioned it being pain, and it is. It's like being bored. It's kind of painful, but it's this really interesting pain where it's like, well, the only way to escape the pain of boredom is to think of something interesting to do or to ponder or whatever. And so it's like if you just sit there and let yourself dwell in the boredom and experience that pain, well, your brain is going to start to look for all these, like, how can I get out of this? And so it has to start asking questions, or at least that's how it seems to me. It's going to start asking questions or like pumping out ideas for, well, like the first idea, especially if you're someone who has trained yourself to grab your phone, it's like the first idea that it's going to have is, well, grab your phone. But then if you ignore that, it's going to have to come up with something else. Like, well, maybe I don't know. I guess we could look out the window for a couple minutes, see if anything interesting happens out there. It keeps going from there.
Yeah, if you force that, you know, um, yourself to do things like that, it's good. Because what we do, and this is, what I do, is you avoid the deeper pains by being entertained. And it's okay to be entertained. We all need to kind of take a break. But what you're really doing is you're deferring the inevitable stuff that you have to think through, and that could crash. And that's what we're seeing a lot. And I think, just my opinion, um, that's why a lot of us feel lonely when because we're looking to this entertainment thing so much, this phone or whatever it is, that we're not seeing um, other humans, which we're meant to be together. Our
Yeah.
technologies move beyond um, our needs as humans. We haven't evolved so quickly now that Google is ingrained in our heads, but just give us a few years, I guess. I don't
Yeah, I
know.
don't think I want that.
I, but yeah, and it's not like technology being evil and anti-tech, because it's great because it connects us to people. The promise of that is great, just like the telegraphs did, just like letters, the Romans roads, where people could go places they never could before. Now we have all that, but what we're trying to do is we're trying to outsource the very things that are human.
Yeah.
AI is trying to recreate. My daughter, who's the artist, hates this. They're taking a person's kind of style of art and they're spitting out stuff that's kind of close,
Yeah.
but they're not really getting a person to think of what's deconstructing that how did that person come up with that shot, what kind of film was used with this photo, or if you go back to music, what is that what pitches are part of that I could like listen to that again, because I haven't heard that combination of chords before, as opposed to just putting it through Google all the time, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah. I was talking to my brother about this. He's an amazing artist, and we were talking about AI generated art and the promise of that, and also like the downsides of that. And I was kind of on the optimistic side of, like, I realized a lot of the beauty of art is about like where it comes from. So if you had like a person create a piece of art and you had AI generate art that looks basically identical, it's like, which one do I want? And it's kind of like well, you could get Mona Lisa hanging up in your house right now, but it's not going to be the real one unless you pay lots and lots of money. It's like, well, why is the real one worth so much more money than a printout that you could probably make it look indistinguishable to the naked eye. It's like, but the original is still worth so much more. It's like, why is that? Well, it's because like there's some human element that is missing from the copies. And I was thinking about like, would I rather have like a really, really amazing picture of a dog? Or would I rather have a scribble of a dog that my son drew?
Mhm.
I'd take the scribble of a dog 100% of the time. And
Yeah.
so, I guess I'm optimistic in that front, because like, even with, I mentioned at the beginning, the AI generated podcast, it sounded so real. But I don't want to listen to that, even if the conversation that they have is like about interesting topics or anything like that. Like, I want to hear people talk, because I want, like, what's valuable to me isn't just the information. It's like, it's the human connection. And like, this conversation is so much more meaningful to me than if I was having this exact same conversation with richbot.ai, that
Which
just
maybe I
happens.
am a bot. I don't know. I could be.
Yeah, maybe you're
Uh,
fooling me. It's very impressive if you are, but I feel like there's a human connection.
uh,
And I think as soon as it gets, as soon as I no longer believe that human is actually human, that it's actually a robot that I'm talking to, it's like the the magic is gone, I guess.
yeah, I think that's really important. That's why I like to say I don't like being called a content creator. I like being called a connection creator.
Yeah.
Not because there's anything wrong with being a content creator, because a lot of us like to do that. It's because I'm not just making something for some kind of container. I'm trying to connect to an actual person. And we're medium, the mediums we use, technology here, because we're like in different time zones, and now the sun is out here, by the way, finally. Um, but yeah, it's so the medium is a powerful thing, but we still can't forget what you just said there is connection is really what we need. So it's great when we can use a medium, regardless of what it is, whether it's, paint, oil paint on a canvas, or scribbling, or podcast, um, to be connected to other humans and in that. But if we're looking at it as, okay, it's the medium is the goal, the container is the goal, as opposed to the connection, then I think that's kind of where we start to lose that. So I do think this is almost like an ethical question, because ethics are questions, by the way, too.
Yeah.
Like what is it that I value? Do I value just a number? Because who cares if you have, I used to have a lot of MySpace followers, right? Now it just doesn't matter now. you my music was on MySpace. Well, there's no more MySpace. There's no more mp3.com. Those are ancient things now. Um, the medium wasn't important, but the connections I had that were real would still last, whether it's through blogging or podcasting or whatever. And so, am I asking that question? I guess is it, what, um, how am I connecting? And if you're going to pick your phone up and you're going to text somebody, say, "Hey, I haven't heard from you for a while. How are you doing? Been thinking about you." That's incredible that I can have this little piece of glass in my hand that can actually connect to a person that I should be connecting with. But
Mhm.
I'm too busy scrolling through these YouTube videos of 5-year-olds who are experts at things I'll never be expert at. And
Right.
because it's so fun, and and they know how to get the chemistry of my brain. They figure it out, how to track my eye movements and my swiping. But my real words on that same technology that I choose to put to talk to a friend, could mean a lot. Um, and so, there's a real person on the other side of the screen. And if I
Mhm.
can just think how powerful that is, then the Mona Lisa, I guess is possible in a way. So creativity could be in, sending, is not just sending a Google meme to somebody, but sending even just a simple thought of, "I thought of you," and then the meme, you know. So don't let the meme do all the work. Don't let, um, and so that kind of connection means something. If I'm depressed, am I reaching out to folks, or am I just trying to scroll? And
Mhm.
am I creating the kind of content that it's going to help them do that better? It's going to help them be that kind of person who can, you know, uh, dream of the life that they want, instead of just passively receiving what the world has and online. And because there's a lot of content, and some of
Yeah.
it's really cool, super cool. And there's no lie about that.
Yeah, that kind of inspires a couple questions for me of like that I could ask myself of how is this tool helping me connect right now? Um, or which tool is going to help me connect with others most effectively? Because that's a very different question than, which tool or like which platform could I um, get the most people to click a like button on content that I post or something like that. It's like which one is actually going to help me connect with, have human connections, not just have digital reactions. I don't know, have to ponder that question more.
It's a great question. I was just meeting with my friend Dave, who's a photographer, and we hadn't seen each other for a while. But because he values connection so much, he's successful online. Thousands of people will buy his little presets for for photography,
Hmm.
and but he makes connections with people that are real. He'll seek them out, and he does a lot of like nature photography, and he'll take people on trips with him, and they'll hang out together, and instead of being a competition, they're cooperating and taking, you know, photos that they're going to use, to sell perhaps,
Hmm.
for clients and things like that. But it's like that connection part is looking at him as someone I want to be more like him, because what he understands that part of connection. And I think the most creative people I know that I'd like to be more like are people like my friend Dave, who the connection is, if it wasn't there, they wouldn't be doing it. And so when they're online, it's just an extension of that same kind of thing. And so I'm trying to ask myself, okay, how do I do more of that? Um, how do I reach out and let that be it, and not be afraid of that? Because some of us are a little more introverted, even if we can
Hmm.
talk, and I'm not an introvert in front of like 500 people, but um, meeting new folks is hard sometimes, and there's
Yeah.
risk to it. And but those soft skills, they call them, we're kind of losing those a bit.
I know we're kind of running low on time here, so I wanted to share if anyone else is joining us in this conversation, listening. Rich and I actually created a course together recently. Rich, I don't know if we decided on a name for it. Did you have a name in mind? I called it like the creative triangle or something, but that was just
As long as
based
you
on
put
some.
robots and wizards in there somewhere,
Okay.
then that's all I'm asking, because I
We'll name it. We'll have a name for it. Um, but it was kind of answering that question that you were posed by that student which is, what does your creative process look like? And so I got to learn from Rich about a creative process, maybe the creative process. Would you go that far?
I would say so. That's just from researchers, they call that
Yeah.
the creative process. It's not about art or whatever. It's about whether you're a business or, a scientist even. There's this thing that humans do that they've kind of they've seen the pattern. And
Yeah.
we all do this all the time, perhaps, but it's kind of nice to know, like, oh, wait a minute, here's how we can do that a little better.
Yeah. So if you want to check out that course and you want to learn to be more creative in a more maybe, I don't want to say systematic and too clinical of a way or too rigid of a way, but having some sort of process to inspire you. I really enjoyed it because to me, it felt like it always gave me a direction to go. Like, it gave options. So instead of just getting stuck somewhere in the creative process, it was like, oh, well, here's at least a couple of directions I can go that to get me unstuck. And I really valued that. I thought that was really cool. So if you want to check that out, learn more from Rich, that course is him teaching me. So if you enjoyed this conversation, it's similar to this conversation, but a little more structured, more into the action details, processes you can apply. So check that out. We'll drop links to that in the show notes for this episode. Rich, did you have any closing thoughts or questions?
I'm still thinking about the 5-year-old. But yeah, I think what we're ending on there about connection. Why do we create? When you see your child scribble something for you, that doesn't change because that child will grow up and be creating things, and hopefully will live long enough to see what great things they produce in the world. And so that's really important. Just keep creating.
We'll end on that. Thank you, Rich. It was a pleasure chatting with you. Love hanging out. And thanks for helping me think more effectively and get inspired about creativity.
My pleasure, man.
The Superhuman Academy podcast is hosted by Collin Jewett and designed and edited by Army Cinco, with original music by Joshua Schunig and voiceovers by Corey Page Schunig. That's me. You can find past episodes and resources, as well as access to the ever-growing Superhuman Academy community at superhumanacademy.com. If you like the show, don't forget to subscribe and leave us a review on your podcast platform of choice.